but I'm glad that we have everyone. And we are being recorded, which is great. And I'll give everyone just a little bit more time. We have people jumping in, and we will get started within the next 30 seconds to a minute. Still have a lot of parents moving. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Um, Welcome to Parent University. On behalf of the middle grades principal, Mr. George Wilkerson, and the middle grades math assistant principal, Miss Jessica Greer, and the entire faculty and staff for middle grades, welcome. We are decided that you decided to soar with us this evening. The agenda is as stated. We will go ahead and follow it as displayed here. We'll start off with a few introductions, go into the standards, and as they mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about some helpful hints that parents and learning coaches can do to make sure that their students are successful. We'll visit the platforms, discuss our Ready and I Excel, and then we'll talk about how can your student get help. And of course, at the end, we would definitely try to make time for a little bit of Q&A. Let's start off with me. I'm Dr. Jolanda Harris. I am the middle grades math academic administrator. This is my second year with GCA. I have about 26 years, and maybe a little bit more than that now, but I have about 26 years of experience. And of course, you can see here that my hometown is Atlanta. And I have one son, and he's in his freshman year in college, and I miss him oh so much, but I am delighted and excited for this new venture for him. And tonight, some of the same things that I'm going to discuss with you are some of the same things that I discussed with my son and my husband were baffled when we hit the middle grades area. So hopefully I'll answer some questions for you during my presentation and give you some aha moments. This is our middle grade band. Woohoo! Prior to the beginning of the school year, we all met face to face in Athens, Georgia, and prepared and planned for the best school year ever for GCA. And in the front, right smack in the front, you can see our fearless leader. That's Mr. Wilkerson. And if you look down, the four ladies that are well, excuse me, Brian, there are two ladies kneeling right here. The second one from the left, right in the middle, is our middle grades and assistant principal, Miss Jessica Greer, which I mentioned earlier. So this is us planning for your babies and making sure that we are prepared to give them an experience. Let's see. Miss Greer, I saw you pop up. Did you have something to say? Were you about to introduce yourself? Are you okay? Okay.
I was going to jump on real quick and say hello. Hold on just a second.
Go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to see all of you. So glad to see everybody today on this wonderful Tuesday evening. And thank you so much for coming out and supporting your student in math. The math is one of my absolute favorite subjects. And so I'm glad to see all of you out here today and ready to learn how to support your student in math. So, Dr. Harris, I'll turn it back over to you. But thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Thank you. And we start all of our meetings. Thank you, Ms. Greer. We start all of our meetings this year reminding ourselves as faculty members that we are committed to the following expectations: um, to plan and prepare and administer curriculum instruction and assessment in the best way we can possibly do so, provide a safe and secure learning environment. Communication and relationships are built on a daily basis between the teachers and the students and the learning coaches. And most importantly, to maintain our professionalism when it comes to delivering our curriculum and content, as well as when we have to step to the side and have conferences with parents. So these are our expectations. And these are our 22-23 student achievement plans for the middle grades band. And if you look at the first goal is to increase by 3% in overall interim assessments. And we're working on that. We use the data we have one coming up soon, an IA, but we use that data to build instruction and to see what it is that the students need assistance with. And so that kind of curtails us and tells us which direction we need to go in the classroom as far as instruction. Go to increase 3% of students in the developing, proficient, as well as the distinguished areas in all subjects. And our goal 3, 95% or higher completion rates for required assessments. And we're referring to the MAP, the IA midterm, as well as finals. So we want to make sure that 90% of our students are completing the required assessments, because if they don't complete the assessments, we don't know what they know and what they don't know, and definitely we are not able to assist them in being successful. And goal 4, 5% increases in students reading at or above grade level in all grades. And goal 5, decrease the number of students with referrals by 5%. Well, I will tell you, we don't have a lot of referrals, but we want to go ahead and start looking at decreasing those. And our AP does a wonderful job keeping us abreast of that and reaching out to the parents when there is a disturbance or issue in a classroom setting. And goal 6, increase engagement. It's one thing to teach in a classroom when it's brick and mortar and it's face to face, and you can tell by the looks on a student's face if they're lost or they're off task. But when it's virtual, it's difficult when the cameras are off. So one of the things that we're really pushing is making sure that those cameras come on and we can see that student working and being engaged and raising their hand or simply putting up their work to the camera when they've completed an assignment. It just kind of helps the teacher to gauge, what it is they need to do. It's just sometimes, we look at is it an engaging activity that students just didn't get it because they were confused, were the instructions confusing. And so when they turn those cameras on, a lot of those students light up with the cameras. So goal 7, 3% increase in GMAS in all content areas. And finally, goal 8 is 60% of students maintaining or increasing in overall instructional level. So it's all about seeing students be successful and being there to help them be successful. So that's what we're talking about tonight. How can learning coaches and parents make sure that their student is successful for this school term? Here are the standards. Notice that the standards are broken down by year. Please keep in mind that it's important for students to master standards on a yearly basis in math, in particularly, because teachers constantly scaffold and build on the prior year's standards. So it's a lot easier for them to grasp new concepts when they have something about that particular standard to build on. So just make sure that your student is starting off right in sixth grade and looking at these topics and making sure they understand the topics and being prepared for seventh grade and being prepared for eighth grade. As a teacher, I always said, concentrate on what's coming. Okay. So if you're concentrating on what's coming, I'm preparing for seventh grade, although I may be in sixth grade. So I'm always thinking ahead. So, what can learning coaches and parents do to help students be successful? One of the things to do is just start playing math puzzles and games that involve math. And there are a lot of apps, such as the ones that I listed here, and some of the ones that are listed. Your student may play in the classroom, or they may play on their own at home. So it's a good idea to just kind of incorporate some fun with math. And I know one of the games that we like, if you haven't played the new Monopoly with the debit cards, you're missing out. Okay, this may be the nerd in me, but you're really missing out, because it's a great opportunity for them to get a feel for when you're swiping your debit card, and when your debit card is declined, if that happens, they'll understand, because I played that game. My family plays that game. And to hear that buzzer go when you are out of money is no playing joke. So just make sure that you are looking for opportunities to incorporate fun when learning math. And next, never tell kids they are wrong when they are working on math problems. Mistakes are the stepping stones to learning. Math students have a tendency to shut down when they're told several times that they're doing something wrong. So you may want to just kind of help build up their confidence in math. And everything that I'm sharing with you is what I experienced with my son. And prior to having my son and someone talking about, I never understood, how can someone excel in English and not do well in math? It just did not, I just couldn't understand it. But he definitely was one of those kids that struggled in math. And I realized it was just the way he looked at learning math. And so we couldn't say things, like, that's wrong, just continue to say that's wrong. And, we would watch him shut down. So we had to go back to the drawing board and look at ways to build up his confidence and look at the positive sides. You start small and we build large. So you want those stepping stones, just gradually, just the smallest little thing can make them feel good about math. And that's what you want to focus on. Never associate math with speed. You know, when students are learning to read, they talk about their fluency, and they want you to be able to speed read and understand. You can scan paragraphs and so forth. But I learned quickly, once again, with my son, that speed doesn't work for him. And it doesn't work for a lot of our students when they feel like they have to get it perfect. That math problem has to be done correctly. They've got to know those multiplication tables and so forth. So allow them to slow it down a little bit and just work at their own pace. And if that might be all they need. I know that that was one of the huge issues, um, watching my son when he was in grade school, and the multiplication tables, and they would time them. And we thought it was, I promise you, We thought he was going to have a stroke at 10 because he would get so nervous. Because when their confidence level is low and you tell them to speed up and then you're telling them all the things that they're doing are wrong, can you imagine what their little minds are going through? And those are the habits that come right into middle grades. And you definitely can't have those when you're learning some difficult concepts in math. Never share with your kids that you were bad at math and you didn't dislike it. I always say, no one ever says, I never learned to read, because we would stare at them if they said that out loud. You never learned to read. But I've heard parents over and over again say, I never was great at math. It must be a family thing. I hate math. I dislike it. And, it's just not my favorite topic. And once you say all of that, students come right into the classroom and say, I hate math. I dislike math class. This is the hardest subject I've ever taken. I will never get it. And you want to make sure that you're feeding positive thoughts into your student when it comes to math. Keep the bad stuff in the back of your head. If it was a math teacher that you just really didn't like, don't say, you know what, I didn't like my math teacher either. I didn't like the math concepts that she taught or he taught. So some of those things, you know what, sometimes it's best to keep it to ourselves. Okay. And if it's something positive you can say, um, share it. Share it. Say things like, you know what, I wish I had spent more time on my math homework. I wish I hadn't rushed through it. And I know that it would have been a lot easier for me. You may want to change the way we say things. Encourage number sense. Number sense. When you go out to dinner or you're shopping, um, anytime you're having to compute, even when you're in Home Depot and you're um, looking for screwdrivers and things like that, and you're looking for the exact measurement for a ceiling fan, or you're getting carpet, and you need to have the measurements of a room. Start talking with your student about that so that they can develop a number sense. This is a great time for them to learn how to estimate. So when we're looking at numbers such as the first list of numbers, the one that says 13 through 11, instead of getting your calculators out and adding those numbers together, something like this would be a good exercise for them. What would you group 13 with that would make it easier to add? Instead of adding 13, if I group it with 7, wouldn't that be easier? So now I'm looking at 20 as opposed to 13. So I can add 20 in my head. So doing something like that. With 29 and 56, how would you add 29 and 56? How would you add 29 and 56? Wouldn't it be easier to make 29 into 30? Just take one from 56 and it becomes 55. Those are those kind of tricks that we want to, they're not really tricks, but we call them tricks because it makes students feel like they're doing some kind of magical math. So those are the kind of things you want to make sure that you're spending time on. Proportional thinking. When you're pouring milk or juice or anything like that, start asking them, where would half of this glass be if it was full? Where would a third of it? What would be an eighth of it? And just start kind of having them visualize things in parts and halves. So math is all around us, which leads us right into changing the growth mindset. The growth mindset. And instead of um, having the fixed mindset of, I'll never be able to do this, which as a math teacher, we hear that a lot. You'll have students say, I love a challenge. It makes just changing the mindset changes how you approach math. There's nothing I can do about it. That's your fixed mindset. But what if that student said, can I try this a different way? We all have heard that there's different ways of solving problems. And I love when people say, I'm not really good at that new school math. You know what? Math is math. You've got to solve the equation, no matter how you're looking at it. What if they said, there's no point in trying? That's kind of sad if you hear a child say, there's no point in trying, I'll never get it. But can you imagine how they feel when they just verbalize, I'm going to solve this problem, and they are determined to give it their all? It makes a difference in how they approach math and how they look at it. So remember, math is everywhere in our daily life, whether we're shopping, calculating taxes, discounts, and we love those discounts. And I don't know if you guys are I almost said cucumbers, but couponers. But those are excellent ways to introduce not only saving, but how much are you saving? How can you calculate it? If you're cooking and you're changing the measurements to increase the amount, or better yet, in my situation and my husband and I, how are we changing it to decrease? So how, which would involve us dividing the recipe. Playing sports, they're adding up yardages, they're counting their average yards and scores, and whether they're playing baseball, basketball, and so forth. If they're playing music, have them look at the music bars. And it's important to just kind of introduce math in this manner in a household, so that they're not totally looking at it as being something isolated that they only need to know for a classroom setting. Patterns, measurement, probability, of course, money, okay, and fractions. I noticed that the seventh graders were talking about dividing fractions today. And it was great to see them jump on the camera and jump on the mic and explain how to divide those fractions. So if you can get them talking about math and sharing how they could solve and calculate, that's half the battle. That is half the battle right there. But remember, math is everywhere. And one of the things, a huge portion of being successful, is knowing the platforms that your student, as well as the learning coaches and the parents, should be familiar with. And the main two platforms are Clever and Canvas. And by now, I know you know the names. You've heard them, Clever and Canvas. Those are the main two. But sometimes when it's new parent or new students, if it's not broken out and given to you like this, it can be very confusing. I truly understand. Remember, your teachers have been here as well. We've gone through the learning curve. Clever is a way to access the following apps. Okay. You may be familiar with your math students should be familiar with Desmos. And Desmos is a great way for teachers that are teaching virtual to see what your student is thinking about a particular problem, and just kind of it replaces a teacher being able to walk around a classroom and actually see what a student is writing on their paper. So it makes all the difference. So make sure your child is giving their all when they are participating in Canvas. I mean, in Desmos, excuse me. So the other ones should be very familiar. Right now, the independent practices are usually administered through iReady and iExcel. And the other platform will be Canvas. This is where students access Jigsaw, okay? And you had to come through here, come through Canvas to access Jigsaw tonight. This is where their classes are located. coursework along with their calendars, which contain their daily agendas, weekly agendas as well. It also stores the modules, which gives your student access to the assignments, quizzes, and tests. So those are the two platforms, but don't let your student become overwhelmed. Just break it down. So just hold on. Let's look and see where we can locate different things, because I know that they can also locate Nearpod through Canvas. So just becoming familiar with the two platforms is a bonus. iReady and iExcel teacher assigned lessons. And as I stated before, these are very helpful tools to get familiar with, because this is where your student would get an opportunity to work independently. And we know once with the gradual release um, lesson plan that the teachers use during the day during class, they get to a portion that is independent practice. And those assignments are normally given through iReady and iExcel. So by now, they should be able to go to Clever and access both of these apps and complete their independent practices. And sometimes they can only start the independent practices and be able to complete them on their own once they settle down in the afternoon and they're able to work independently. So understand what you have learned or learn very soon. And that's what they're both there for. So when you're working independently, when your student is working independently, it gives them a opportunity to show what they learned. And some teachers say, "Show me what you know," and that's their opportunity to do so through iReady and iExcel. Now, if all of that isn't working, they stumble sometimes and they get a little confused, then it's important to be able to email their math teacher if they're struggling on a particular content, and during class, ask questions. Have them, whether they direct message them or ask them in the main chat, because they're the question that they have, other students may have. And I'm telling you, it's nothing like when you see a student raise their hand or ask a question, because you're like, I'm not teaching um, to a wall. It lets that teacher know that you're listening, you're actively listening. Email a family member for support. Sometimes an older sibling or cousin or neighbor, sometimes they can also assist you, whether it's with a math problem or computer issues, programs. Regardless, reach out to those individuals for assistance. Use the Canvas calendar. The agenda view, most students say it works better for them, and links to the lessons and resources. And with that said, once again, I want to thank you for being here tonight and sharing part of your dinner time to soar with us. And if you have any questions that you would like to type in the chat, we have teachers and administrators that will be willing to answer as well. I see our principal is here. Let me see if it's long. Oh, there it is. Yeah, any questions? Okay, I see. Well, if you think of anything that, any questions that spark your memory or your mind later on this evening, um, please feel free to share it with your teachers. And, it may be something that we can do differently, because we're all in this together. Everyone wants the students to be successful. And when we are all working together, our chances are much better than them trying to do it all alone. Let's see, the class, why would the chat box not be available? Um, I think it's Megan. Well, it really depends on the teacher. When I'm covering a class, if I'm doing a mini lesson and I want students to listen and not just respond right away, I use it just as if I was face to face. Hold your questions for a second and let me share the information first. And then I'll unlock the chat so that students can ask questions or share answers and responses. But that's an individual teacher kind of thing when it comes to locking the chat. And I will share with you that the chat should not be locked the entire time during the class period. So that's something that you may want to have a conversation with the teacher about and see if it's something, you guys can work out. Okay. But thank you for asking. And let's see. I can see where you're typing. Okay. I'm not really certain. That's just, like I said, that I have no idea what's going on in that individual classroom where the chat is locked. So that's something that you would definitely need to have a conversation with the teacher. And, maybe it might be an issue with her jigsaw, or it may be something um, that I should say she or he, and that's something that you may want to reach out to that individual teacher about. You're so welcome. And let's see. Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. And they didn't share with us exactly how long we have in here. So I know that we have a little bit of time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Okay. Okay. So we have until 7:30. Okay. If you have any questions, you are so welcome. You're so welcome, Anissa. And just remember, just stay positive. A lot of the success has to do with, speaking positive about school and speaking positive about math for sure. And just letting them know that, I look at it like this. This is what I had to break down and tell my son. If everyone can drive and everyone's driving, surely it's not that difficult. Well, if everyone is being successful in adding math and subtracting and adding and dividing, surely it can't be that difficult. So give it a try. So just speak positive about it. Mr. Wilkerson has put in the attendance link, so please fill that out. Yes, yes. And, a lot of times, Suzette, people think that students who are struggling in math are struggling in every subject area or they're just low. But, I always say it's just the way they think. And I didn't think about it until I had one of those students. And we had to do things a lot differently and approach it a lot differently. Ms. Shepherd, no, there is not an attendance link for the teachers. Any questions that apply to middle grades? Okay. Our principal stated that if you are a teacher in here, you can fill that out as that one out as well. Okay. I stand corrected. Thank you. There's an option on it for the GCA staff. Okay, great. Thank you. I don't have it right in front of me. Maybe Mr. Wilkerson or Miss Greer can type it in. When will the first report card come out? I'm leery about just typing in dates and I don't have it right in front of me. Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson, because it's being recorded and someone will say, well, Dr. Harris said that it was coming out on this date. And then I'll be so wrong. So while he's looking for that, my child was overwhelmed during a quiz today and he started crying, but I couldn't take him off camera. It was overwhelming for him. Yeah. Um, Virtual is difficult for some students, but I always say, just like we've gotten used to face in the brick and mortar, we have to get our students used to being on camera and assist them in being at ease during testing times. So that's something you may have to work on coaching um, your child through, and just talking about it, when it's not a quiz or a test, making sure that they're on camera when it's just a regular day. And, once they get used to being on camera, it's not as overwhelming. That's what I've noticed with students. Um, but, it's a gradual thing. Maybe start off, just make sure you're on camera for 15 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to do 30 minutes for this class. And so, just a gradual build up. And I hate to hear that. Yeah, sometimes you do have to regroup. Okay. And, make sure you share that with their teacher, because a lot of times they don't, as teachers, we don't know what's going on behind the camera. So that may be something you want to email and let them know that you're working past it. But it is difficult when you're never on camera and then you're asked to be on camera the entire time. So I always say start off gradual and build it up, because it's important that they're on camera and they're actively participating. Okay. Then the amount of time, that's definitely something you would want to discuss with the teacher. They definitely will understand. Okay. Thank you, Brandy. Okay. If there, I think we're still looking for the date for the report cards. Okay. Okay. Ms. Wilkinson said there's no date determined yet for the report cards. Once determined, it will be shared with families. Okay. Okay. All righty. And we will just Pause for the cause. Okay. Any other questions? And I was worried about taking up too much time with the slide presentation, but this is good. We'll take a moment so that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Since there are no other questions, we are going to go ahead and dismiss. Once again, thank you for soaring with us. And you are so welcome, Megan. Um, and And once again, remember individual questions, reach out to your teachers and let them make them aware of some of the issues that you may be having in class. Okay? All right, we're here to help and guarantee success for all students that we touch on every day. Anyone that we're able to reach out to and virtually and make a difference, that's what we're here for. Okay? All right. If you don't have any other questions, you are free to go. One way to Megan, one way to reach out to the teachers, they're listed on Canvas. Every teacher has a homepage. Okay. Okay. And I'm just kind of waiting for everyone to dismiss. Yes, you can email. Our assistant principal says you can email them through Canvas. Yes, you can email them through Canvas. Okay. You're welcome. Have a good evening. Bye bye. Okay. You are dismissed. As we tell students, have a great day, a great evening. Okay. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Good night, Miss Greer. See you tomorrow bright and early. Bye bye.